Hi, welcome to the first episode of Mood India, a program by California Arts Association. I'm sure after hearing that melodious piece of music, most of you recognize the instrument as sitar. Thanks to Beatles and Pandit Ravi Shankar, most of us here in the Western world are very much aware of this instrument, sitar. Today, we are very fortunate to have here amongst us in the studio two very accomplished artists, Prasad, Joglekar, and Abhinay, Padhye.
Hi.
We are going to chat with them, talk a bit about Indian classical music and about sitar in particular, and of course, listen to more music. In the context of Indian classical music, introduction of an artist is really an introduction to his educational background and mostly the names of his gurus, the various stalwarts of music that the artist has learned from. Prasad was fortunate to start his very initial sitar education from his parents. Then he took lessons from Mr. and Mrs. Sachidananda Padhye of Pune in India. And then he came under the tutelage of the legendary sitar maestro, Ustad Abdul Halim Jafar Khan, who remained his main guru. Nowadays, Prasad takes guidance from the great Ustad Shahid Parvez. Prasad, Joglekar.
Hi.
On tabla, accompanying Prasad, is Abhinay Padhye, another accomplished artist of this program. Abhinay started learning from Pandit Nana Mule of Mumbai. After that, he started learning tabla from Pandit Bhai Gaitonde, and after coming here to the United States, he has the great fortune of learning tabla, continuing his education here from the great legendary Pandit Shapan Chaudhary. So that really completes the introduction of these two artists. And before we proceed with this conversation, I think after the introduction of the artists, why not start introducing the instrument itself, sitar?
Yeah. So as you must have noticed, this is quite a remarkable instrument in the sense that it has a distinct shape and a distinct structure, quite unlike any other instrument, and it's also held, the posture is also unique, which is demanded by the structure of the instrument. So let's go a little bit into what the instrument is made up of. This part here is actually made up from a special kind of pumpkin, which is chemically processed and hardened, and it's used as a hollow cavity, the acoustic amplifier that sustains the sound of the instrument.
Like acoustic guitar.
Yeah, this is an acoustic amplifier for the instrument. On top of that, this part is called tabla. It's made of wood. This part is made of wood as well, and there is a lot of strings on sitar. So there is 7 main strings in the conventional form of sitar today. Although in Vilayat Khani style there is sometimes 6 strings because they're tuned a little differently. And then there is strings underneath. These are resonant strings, and their main function is to resonate when the right frequencies are plucked on the main strings. As a result, there is 7 main strings, 7 or 6, and there is 11 or 13 resonant strings that makes the whole sitar. Now this part is a bridge, which is made of a hard and smooth material which has a very peculiar shape, and that's probably the heart of sitar. It really decides the sound quality and the sustenance of sound in sitar, and that a little change in this bridge makes a lot of difference, because this bridge not only sustains the transverse waves created on the strings, but it also feeds into the acoustic amplifier underneath. So this is really very important part of sitar. These things are wooden pegs which hold tight inside the holes, and they're used to adjust the tension of sitar. Now there is 3 ways, as we know, to create different frequencies on vibrating strings, and sitar uses all of them, and as a result has a very rich mix of different degrees of freedom that you can use while playing the instrument. One thing is, of course, the length of the string, the vibrating length of the string, and when you go from one point to the other, these are metal frets that act as support for the string. This is the other support for the string, and as you slide your hand down, you're changing the length of the string, which changes the frequency. The other method is, of course, changing the tension in the string, and we use that a lot in sitar. That's for the mean part. We'll come to that later on. The third thing you can do to change frequencies in strings is change the mass per unit length, which is basically either the material of the string or the thickness of the string. And sitar uses both these methods. These strings are made up of different materials: steel, bronze, copper, and so on, and they have different cross sections. So as a result, you can get full 4 octaves and use all the strings while rendering the sitar performance.
Now sitar is a very ancient instrument, right?
Yes. Let me take you back a few centuries to the 13th century. This was the time when veena was already there in India. Probably bean was already there. There was already some other string instruments too. But in this century there was this great maestro called Amir Khusro, who wanted an accompanying instrument for his Sufi renditions to his Peer, Nizamuddin. And for that purpose, he created an instrument with 3 strings to be used as accompaniment for the vocal music. That's one of the main theories of how sitar came into existence. And the next few centuries saw quite a bit of interesting give and take in terms of culture, society, and the whole spectrum of society underwent a lot of change. And just the way Indian culture imbibed a lot of external influences and synthesized them, the Indian music did that too. And then the sitar evolved over time from an accompanying instrument with 3 strings into its today's form, which has a lot more strings, and it's no longer used as simply an accompanying instrument, but it's used as a solo instrument.
And are there people still making experiments on today's form of sitar?
A lot of creative genius in the last couple of centuries went into exploring all these degrees of freedom offered by the basic structure of sitar. And all the 3 main gharanas, or 3 main schools of sitar, have explored not only the technical aspects of playing sitar, they made some changes to the structure of the sitar, the strings and so on, but they also adopted their thought process while evolving the music to suit a particular style of alankars or ornaments of sitar, which we'll go into later on. And the renditions sound different in different gharanas, even though the instrument is the same, and that's because of the vast degrees of possibilities that this instrument presents. And you can really adopt the instrument to suit a particular style, a particular thought process in development. And to name a few gharanas, there is 3 main schools in Sitar today. One is of course the Senia Meher Gharana, which is the Gharana of Ravi Shankar, Pandit Ravi Shankar, yeah. And Pandit Ravi Shankar and Pandit Nikhil Banerjee both belong to that Gharana. The second Gharana is of course the Gayaki Ang Gharana, which everyone knows about, which is Vilayat Khani Gharana, named after Imdad Khan Sahab or Itawa, so it's called Itawa Gharana. And the third Gharana is the Jafar Khani Gharana, which is the Jafar Khani style of Sitar. And I've been very fortunate to learn from Ustad Abdul Halim Jafar Khan Sahab directly. And I've been also fortunate to learn some nuances of Itawa Gharana from Ustad Shahid Parvez, who is the leading exponent of that Gharana today.
And these gharanas show up in your renderings kind of in a free form, sometimes one and sometimes the other, sometimes both.
Yeah, it's a matter of technique and it's a matter of thought process. So depending on the rag, depending on the mood, depending on the ambience, and depending on the way your thought process leads you to developing different things, all these different techniques show up in your playing. You can probably distinguish one type of meend or alap or gamak from the other, but what really matters is the cohesive effect that you get by employing all these techniques. So technical virtuosity is just the beginning. It's the means but not the end. And you have to use these different techniques evolved by sitar maestros to get to the ultimate objective, which is really the melody and exploration.
Now, while explaining, you did use the term rag. So maybe it's a logical point where we can talk a little bit about what is rag in Indian classical music.
Yeah. Now, rag is the grammatic structure of the presentation. It defines the language. It defines the rules of the game to be followed by the presenter of the music.
So it's basically a combination of notes.
It defines certain notes which are allowed. It defines certain patterns which are allowed. It also lays out how much importance is to be given to certain notes. But the ultimate objective is to create a certain mood, and that's the purpose of having all these restrictions in place. These are not really restrictions, because in Indian classical music, improvisation is not an antonym of classicism. Classicism and improvisation go hand in hand. So there's a lot of room to improvise, but rag brings a certain discipline, a certain structure, a certain trajectory. It defines a path for a particular presentation to proceed. And in that sense, like in any classical form, you need certain discipline. And raga and tal introduces that discipline that sets this particular rendition apart from just a free form.
Now, rag is of course the basic structure, but then for sitar you use certain things as the building blocks named as alankars. So if you could show us some of them.
Yeah. So the alankar literally means ornament, and these are really ornaments of sitar which make sitar look beautiful or sound beautiful. And these are basically techniques which you can use to produce lots of different varieties of sounds. And given that this instrument is so versatile, you really have a wide range of things you can do to produce different types of sounds, and then use this technical virtuosity to blend into homogeneous form when you're exploring a rag. So I'll just, without going into the details and the nomenclature, I'll try to explain a brief set of concepts we usually use. So let's take 4 notes. Now these notes can be played in a plain way, or I'll show you different types of embellishments that you can do to play the same notes. So all these different types of alankars that you can use to explore. Same notes, they sound different because they're struck in a different way. So the right hand strikes different patterns. I call them syllables. So these are da, ra, and combinations of those. So you can either strike inwards or outwards with different emphasis, and that also makes notes sounds differently.
And with this, you take a rag and explore into it. And
yeah, these are all the tools. This is just a tool set, and how you use the tools to build what you want to build is really up to your imagination. You're only given a certain rules, you're given a paradigm really. It's not rules, it's a paradigm or it's a context in which you're allowed to elaborate, and a lot of the rules for the context really come from what's ultimately going to sound good based on empirical experience and based on a lot of exploration that people have done over the years.
Right. So now that we have talked a lot about how to make music, why not go to the real thing, music itself? And I think today you are going to present us rag Pahadi. Right?
Yeah. So there is a rag called Pahadi that I'm going to present. I'll start with brief alaps, followed by a little bit of jod, just to give an idea, followed by 2 compositions in rag Teen Tal, and on tabla, Abhinay will accompany me.
वाह, क्या बात। क्या बात है। क्या बात है। ये बात क्या बात Tabla.